The last few days, I haven't done any live streaming. I've been resting and trying to focus more on my recovery, so I haven't been on social media a lot. But this article came out today. It's by Vern Nelson. I have really mixed feelings about Vern because he likes to do deals with Republicans and he likes to endorse Republicans sometimes. And he's acted oddly. He and his wife have acted oddly in the past with some of the activists in the area. So I'm going to take this with a grain of salt, but I'll go ahead and read it because the locals seem to think that he's done a good job collecting the information. All right. It's like Jordan Brandman all over again. Okay, so the Jordan Brandman thing, he was forced to resign from Anaheim City Council for really inappropriate, I think it was, I don't know if it was texts or emails or private message chats with colleagues. Um, and he said some really horribly sexist and I think there was some other stuff to it. This was earlier this year. Um, and also, he voted more with the Disney PAC um, city council members. He would vote with them and not work with fellow Democrats in the area to accomplish what they wanted to do for workers and the immigrant community in Anaheim. So that's the background on that. How many times did many of us complain tirelessly about that guy's destructive, sociopathic, anti-democratic behavior and lies, while year after year the Democratic Party of Orange County stood solidly behind him just because? I really have no idea why. Well, they didn't in this last endorsement that he went for. It was a while ago. This was like 2019 or 2020 even. I don't know. It might have been 2019. They voted to not endorse in the race when he was running for, I think it was education. It was like Board of Education, I think is what he was running for. Which is good that they didn't endorse him because he was a charter school industry advocate. Anyway, I feel like a lot of this information is more that Vern has a personal dislike that goes above and beyond just the story breaking, because somehow the Jordan crowd leaked his private messages with an activist that were also very inappropriate and kind of the exact same behavior. Okay. And today comes a letter forwarded by Farrah from the party, apparently entitled Deepak's Unwavering Support for Farrah. Yeah, that was a bad move, especially because I don't recall that there was any sort of central committee vote on issuing a letter like that, and it was only signed by Ada and the gal who formed a club of something like 5 people just so that Farrah would have the ability to have a club make flyers for her. That's what I'm hearing. That's the rumor. So it doesn't look good, especially after Monday's Central Committee meeting, which I just was an observer. There were certain things discussed in that Central Committee meeting about advancing legislation through Irvine that shows, like, how did that get agendized? What connection does that have to the support letter written the week before? It just, even the illusion, of impropriety, you know what I'm saying? Doesn't look good. And then there was the whole cannabis resolution that was an emergency resolution. And the consultant involved in this scandal is primarily a consultant for the cannabis industry. So, I mean, it's just what it looks like. It's what it looks like. There's an alert. Why am I getting these? Oh, that's like part of his webpage. And today comes a letter forwarded by Farrah from the party, apparently. I know it also was a party communication that was sent out on Farrah's email and her letterhead. That was strange. That was strange. Entitled Deepak's Unwavering Support for Farrah, Jordan Redux. Gee, what else do Farrah and Jordan have in common? Oh, they both were working with Melahat. Okay. This blog, meaning Greg and I, guys, it's so hard to read your articles remembering how enthusiastically and aggressively the two of you and two other people at least were pushing for Todd Spitzer in the 2018 cycle. It's difficult for me to read this and like take it seriously. But I mean, I think you and I are probably on the same side looking in at this particular scandal, but you have a little bit more vitriol than I do. This blog, meaning Greg and I, is enthusiastically supporting Branda Lynn for Irvine mayor, along with enthusiastically Dr. Kathleen Treseder and Vern, at least, Larry Agron for council. But then who cares what we say? We're just a joke, according to Mayor Farrah, as well as disgruntled. Huh? How are we disgruntled? Is that just a word she likes to throw around? I don't know, because like for those of us, Vern, Greg, myself, none of us actually live in Irvine. So we don't have, I don't know, maybe they do because of the Jordan, whatever his name was, because of that thing. But I didn't have a personal investment in like what was happening in that race, other than my member told me to vote for his endorsement. I had to follow her instructions, but she did not give me instructions on how to vote if ranked choice voting came up, which is basically they tried to do something of a ranked choice voting to block the endorsement to Jordan. And I was able to vote with the progressives on those particular votes to make sure that he did not get the endorsement. I can't. I'm not gonna, just so I can read these things. Why didn't you just put it in as a picture, dude? This is all on Facebook. I've been seeing most of the stuff on Twitter. I haven't seen the Facebook stuff. That is really hard to read. Was that to you? Was that written to you? I can't even see the top of the image. This is on Facebook. Huh. It's nothing. The OJ blog is a joke. I like that Jeremy guy. Is it nothing? Do you really believe that? And OJ blog is a joke? That Jeremy guy is the one I was standing next to in the rally. We were talking for a long time. Irvine Watchdog is a joke. Voice of OC is a joke. LA Times is a joke. The OC Grand Jury is a joke. The vast amount of public commenters at your city council meetings are a joke. Have you always shrugged off all criticism of your behavior as a joke? Well, joke or not, We have really treated Farrah with kid gloves up till now, and it's high time for that to end. She is a nonstop throbbing menace to the county and the Democratic Party with all the honesty and self-awareness of Donald Trump. Where to even start? There are 3 new dirty Farrah stories just this past week, like a sewer main broke. Well, since we were already discussing the question of whether there's an FBI investigation of the Orange County Power Authority, let's start with the news Dr. Treseter made Wednesday night, confirming that in public. Oh, he must have done a video of it.
Up next, we have Dr. Treseter. OCPA.
I already covered this, but I'll drop the link to this article, so if you want to see his version of it where he actually captions it. Most of what Treseter says here, the Orange Juice blog already reported back in June, but this is the first time she confirms it in public, and this is the first time she confirms the existence of an FBI investigation. By the way, the FBI was first alerted to the OCPA problems and contacted Dr. Treseter because of that Orange Juice blog story. Kind of like how the FBI caught a few insurrectionists last year because of Orange Juice blog stories, and how useful the FBI found our work on Anaheim. Pretty good for a joke blog, eh? Okay, I'll stop. The thing is, Irvine voters are fixing to elect a mayor who's a likely subject of an FBI investigation, along with Melahat and Probalski. We know that the FBI backs off in the months before an election so as not to affect it inappropriately. But is Irvine on the verge of re-electing the next Harry Sidhu? So for those of you who are not familiar with Orange County politics, Harry Sidhu was forced to resign from Anaheim as mayor because he had a scandal, basically the same sort of thing, like a bidding type scandal, going through the Chamber of Commerce to get contracts. He had some sort of cushy relationship, and we're talking, that affects having that kind of corruption in a city like Anaheim that has the Angel Stadium, that has Disneyland, that has some really huge projects and hotels, and it's a resort city. It's got a lot of money changes hands there. So that's a big deal. And the reason that they got the information, that the FBI got the information that they needed, is that they had an informant, an FBI informant, and that informant has been identified by the press as being Melahat Rafi. So many of Farrah's scandals come down to stabbing other Democrats and the party itself in the back. That is really flabbergasting that the party repays her with such loyalty. It almost makes the Deepak look like an abused spouse. You can go all the way back to when she first got on to council and chose corrupt Republican mediocrity Mike Carroll over fine Democrat Lauren Johnson Norris to fill Don Wagner's vacancy. Greg wrote about that at the time, and as always, she lied about it and then justified herself with bogus excuses. So there's links to articles that have been written in the past covering these particular events. Most of the awful, inexplicable things Farrah does can be explained by her following the orders of her handler, Melahat Rafi, who in turn profits off the powerful folks who pay her for results, like developer Patrick Strader of 5 Point. What Strader gets is a pro-developer Republican majority. What Melahat gets is money and more power. What Farrah gets is Republican allies on the council, and apparently a guarantee of no serious Republicans running against her. And what we get is Carroll naming and keeping his even more corrupt and mediocre crony, Brian Probalski, as CEO of what could have been a great Orange County power authority. As usual, she lies about it afterwards. Yes, just like when she hung out with actual Armenian genocide deniers and joked and laughed on video. And disappearing Armenians, about disappearing Armenians. When this video came out, she claimed it was doctored somehow by her petty political enemies. Muslim friends of mine, who always want to believe the best of her, took her at her word. Later, she had to admit the video was real and had to apologize. Another pattern.
So congratulations. You know, in our cultures, we don't congratulate or celebrate anything without sweets. So.
Armenian occasions, thank you for this because you could eat it and it will disappear.
I'll make sure I eat it in front of them.
That was Mellow Hat speaking with her and handing her the gift. And last year, the Democratic Party of Orange County, flaunting what I can only assume is some kind of very perverse sense of humor, honored Farrah with the Truth Award, infuriating many Irvine Democrats and leading celebrity Congressman Adam Schiff, the hero of the Trump impeachment, who happens to have a lot of Armenians in his district, to cancel his appearance. All because of Farrah. The DPOC actually chose Farrah over Adam Schiff, such was Melahat's power. And they appear to be choosing Farrah over Katie as well. But also, like I said, any appearance of impropriety looks terrible. And the fact that a piece of legislation went up to vote, it's a great piece of legislation, but the timeliness of it, when it just looks bad. It looks bad. But on to some of Farrah's more recent anti-democratic transgressions. Screwing over Katie Porter. You may have noticed that our nation is hovering on a knife's edge between democracy and progress on one hand and fascist authoritarianism on the other, and that if Democrats don't keep both houses of Congress this month, we'll be tipping over onto the bad side. You may have also noticed that Congresswoman Katie Porter has been one of the best, brilliantly communicating a progressive vision against the overwhelming corporate power dominating this nation. Also, you should know that Farrah and Katie haven't got along since the 4 to 5 years they've both been in politics, and that Katie is facing a very rough re-election challenge from heavily funded Republican lobbyist Scott Baugh. By the way, Katie lives in Irvine. I think it's important to note this, that she lives in Irvine, and Farrah is the mayor of Irvine. But to Farrah and probably Melahat, the congressional elections and the fate of democracy are less important than Farrah's petty vendetta against Katie. Right now, the Republicans' major attack against Katie is to paint her as anti-police, using a few texts she'd sent to Farrah in July of last year, texts which criticized the performance of the Irvine PD at one of her rallies, texts which Farrah vengefully sent off to Fox News, of all things. You know, the other thing is, when the LA City Council scandal broke a couple weeks ago, everybody called for the resignation of not only Nuri Martinez, but also Kevin De Leon, Gil Cedillo, And I think Ron Herrera, who was the labor leader in that meeting, already stepped down. That's what I heard. But in this case, you have an FBI investigation, a bidding scandal, and a Democrat attacking other Democrats who are currently running for office. And it's crickets. Not only is it crickets, LACDP is actually investing money into a PAC that is supporting her and attacking one of the other city council candidates who is an endorsed Democrat. But not only that, a resolution was passed on Monday at DPOC's Central Committee to call for the resignation of Kevin De Leon and Gil Cedillo, based on Gil's being in that meeting, because I don't think he really said anything, and Kevin saying something racially insensitive about 25 black people being louder than 100 white people or something like that. But the majority of the racist statements were Nuri Martinez. Kevin has said that he's only going to step down if he gets recalled by his district. And I would say that a bidding scandal is far worse than insensitive comments that he could easily apologize for and make up for by doing some community outreach to, build the bridge. But y'all jumped on that so quick and called, Unite Here called for his resignation. LACDP called for his resignation. Democratic Party of Orange County called for his resignation. Several SEIU called for his resignation. But when it comes to a bidding scandal in Irvine, y'all doubled down on your support of that candidate. I mean, they wanted to do an early endorsement on her so that Irvine didn't have time to recruit a candidate to run against her. They finally recruited somebody who's very good, and Sunrise Movement endorsed that candidate. And yeah, I mean, I saw at least one member of DPOC who most certainly does not support the progressive movement, who was at the rally, more than likely trying to get a head count of who was wearing a Branda Lynn shirt, is my guess. That's my guess. Okay. Of course, Farrah now denies the text came from her, but all evidence points to her lying. Farrah and Melahat lie like the day is long when they're caught doing something bad, and right now the main swallower and amplifier of their lies is the liberal OC's Dan Chalumsky. But all of those three together can come up with as an argument again. All those three together can come up with as an argument against the overwhelming evidence doesn't make sense. What would her motivation be? Why would she attack a popular congresswoman who endorsed her? Because she's helping Scott Bow. Because she's doing deals with Mike Carroll. I mean, seriously. Yeah, the three of them can just chill. Well, it does make sense if you're as petty and vengeful, unselfish as Farrah. In the same July 21st text exchange, Katie subjected Farrah to some harsh truth. I already covered this in an earlier video. She basically tried to drop in an honor in a dinner that Katie was having with high-level officials, and Farrah tried to do a drop-in, and Katie said, "Yeah, you can't do that to me again. You don't get to do that to me again." A close Irvine observer points out there could be other motivations about which we can only speculate. Maybe someone paid Millihat for Farrah to do that. Maybe there was a guarantee Farrah would have no endorsed Republican opposition in her reelection campaign, which she doesn't. Maybe it got her hundreds of thousands of dollars in dark money from Five Point and the Irvine Company and other nefarious sources, which she has got. Maybe she wants Katie's job for herself. Maybe all of the above. These are the things we don't find out till much later, if ever. But, well, I'll tell you straight up, Deepak, if she tries to run for Congress, if you endorse her, if you put her up as the endorsed candidate for Congress, you're not going to be able to get any volunteers. It's not going to happen. We're not going to walk for her. No way. Well, I can't even walk anymore. But seriously, I will not lift a finger for Farrah. Not a finger. But whatever Farrah's motivation was, if Katie loses in November, and especially if that happens and we lose the House by a seat or two, Farrah and Millihat will deserve a lot of credit. Maybe the DPOC will give her a Justice Award or something. Yeah, I don't know where you guys come up with your award system. Like, it's like Central Committee, I think, has basically boiled down to just a lot of back scratching. Like, I don't see what we're getting it done. Resolutions do nothing more than state our values as a party. If it's an emergency, it's an emergency for you to call the people who actually write that legislation and like give them some suggestions on the wording for it or something. But like, all right. In Irvine this cycle, the DPOC has endorsed Farrah for re-election as mayor and Treseater and Larry Agron for council. Agron and Farrah are both Democrats, but on council they have disagreed and fought over many issues, from the Veterans Cemetery and the OCPA, the Great Park, and a controversial asphalt plant. We've had plenty of criticisms of Larry over the past decades, but in the current council, with an autocratic Republican and developer-allied mayor like Farrah, and given the dearth of viable candidates and Farrah's likelihood of re-election, Larry is a necessary counterweight. Anyway, endorsed OC Democratic candidates are not supposed to attack each other, but Farrah and Millihat and or their developer allies have found a way around that, laundering the money through the Los Angeles Democratic Party, which has no idea who's good or bad in Irvine, and a new phony PAC called Working Families United PAC, obviously named to create confusion and having nothing to do with the fine Working Families Party. That PAC, having gotten its laundered dough from developers and the Building Industry Association, has in turn been churning out positive ads for Farrah and negative ads with a lot of lies against Agron. The parties are now looking into this controversy and supposedly figuring out how to stop it. Really, how are you going to stop it if you keep supporting her? And I don't think a negotiation on a Unite Here piece of legislation, by getting that passed in Irvine, that makes up for what Farrah did. I mean, obviously, we want that legislation in Irvine. We want it everywhere. But that is not enough of a negotiation, if it was, in fact, a negotiation, to warrant holding up the endorsement. It should have been polled, and she should have been censured. But it's good to remember the developers, who are the great power behind the throne in Irvine, want Mayor Farrah and a Republican majority and want to get rid of Larry Agron. This is how we can be sure that our endorsements of Lynn, Treseater, and Agron are correct. I reached Larry early Sunday morning, wanting to see if he was going to be at the AOC Terceder rally at UCI. I think I woke him up. He groggily agreed with everything I said. He is supporting Branda for mayor and Dr. Terceder. He agrees that Melahat probably helped set up the convoluted system that's been attacking him through LA, and he sounded pessimistic that anything good can be salvaged of the OCPA at this point. Maybe he was just tired. And he says he hasn't looked at the liberal OC or talked to Dan Chalumsky for months, maybe a year. What is he writing now? That blog used to be Agron Apologist Central all the time. Now it is purely whatever Melahat wants said. When the Lincoln Club sent out mailers attacking Anaheim mayoral candidate Ashley Aiken for having hired Melahat as a campaign consultant late last year, most of us Ashley supporters were all, she let her go way back in February, as soon as she found out about Melahat's law breaking. Dan's take, though, was Melahat is completely innocent, the FBI made a mistake, and Ashley should have more loyalty to her friends. Exactly what Melahat's been saying. Who are you gonna believe? Farrah was the last politician to at least pretend to cut ties with Melahat when the FBI scandal exploded in May, reluctantly like a baby letting go of a pacifier. Her first statement was a full-throated defense of her crooked mentor. I also want to be unequivocal in my support for my friend and advisor, Melahat Rafi. I have seen her integrity and ethics up close and personal. She is a leader who deserves credit for rooting out this corruption. I stand with her and believe our justice system will do its job and clear her name. Less than a week later, she backed off, suddenly permitted to admit what the rest of us all knew. I am horrified by what I have learned in the last week about the depth of manipulation of the public, our institutions, and our communities. The press has reported that a former consultant for my campaign, Melahat Rafi, is cooperating witness in the investigation unrelated to her work on my campaign. Miss Rafi is no longer involved in any way with my campaign. Whatever Melahat tells her is it's okay to say, apparently. The voice notes with characteristic wry understatement, this isn't the first time this year that Khan has issued seemingly competing statements on a controversial issue. And how much power is Melahat still discreetly wielding over the DPOC with their cries of unwavering support for Farrah no matter what she does? Yeah, this does not look good. Kathleen summed up Farrah on Twitter like a scientist, better than I could. In each of these cases, Carroll Gate, OCPA Gate, Porter Gate, Armenians Gate, Agron Gate, Mayor Khan follows the same MO. Number one, deny, while presenting an alternate story in which she is innocent. Number two, attack those who brought the story forward by saying they are power-hungry, disgruntled, etc. To me, these insults seem like projections. Number three, when evidence is revealed that contradicts her story, make more elaborate explanations. Number four, ultimately retreat and call for others to move past the incident and support her. How many more times do we need to do this? It's bad for our city, our party, and our community. Enough is enough. Yeah. Okay, so that's the whole article that came out today. And from what I've been told, there is at least one person within Deepak making phone calls asking people to stop talking about this. Also not good. Not a good look. Also not good.